Welcome to the Possibility Paradigm podcast, where we have conversations that are at the intersection of possibility, consciousness, actual experience, and energetic intelligence. The Possibility Paradigm are actually more than conversations. They're experiences that can change your tomorrows. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome everybody to the Possibility Paradigm podcast. I'm Grace Ambrook, your host. And today's session is about, it's funny, I called it a session as an episode, but it kind of feels like it's a bit of an action, a live activation for you. But it's about the paradigm, shifting the paradigm of repeating loops and the freedom energetics that are required to actually release you from that. So repeating loops, trying to shift it and those sorts of things. It often sounds like, or the two energies that I'm working with behind it today as starting points to activate you from, should you choose, is if it hasn't worked before, it's not going to work now. And that then leads into this conscious or subconscious, I must work harder to succeed. Now, both of those things are limiters, and they're a very obvious point of recognition of when you are in compression and not in fluidity. I prefer to use the term fluidity rather than flow because from an energetic perspective, fluidity is much more expansive and it's multi-dimensional and multi-directional, whereas a flow is in one direction, and because of where and how the conscious dynamics of this planet are changing, I think you'll find fluidity a much more expansive process than being in flow. So this paradigm of repeating loops, of continuously trying, that first thing is recognizing that you're in a compression program. Therefore, it's a limitation. It's locking you in. It's like that's what compression does, right? It holds you in place, and therefore some sort of lie is operating in your consciousness, in your psyche, and in your perspective, and in your circuitry. So because when we compress, so again, we're going to flip this a little bit. It's like fixing, we fix the energy in place, right? When we're compressed or when we are resisting. So my words want to come out faster than my mouth to the moment. So I'm just going to slow it down a little bit. And then what happens in this compression and in this resistance is we end up fighting. Now, fighting is neither right nor wrong nor good nor bad. However, it's not creation. It's not creating something new. And it is a compressive state. And in high states of compression, nothing seems to change because you're in compression, right? It's a bit like, well, no, I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit later. So the second thing we do is if we become aware of recognizing that we're in a compression state because we're looping and we keep trying, then one of the great things you can do for yourself is actually acknowledge. Acknowledgement is a very powerful energy when you're working with energetics. Actually acknowledge your desire for fluidity, for a new way, for a new direction. And notice that I use the term new direction as opposed to flow, which takes you in a direction. Fluidity can take you in many directions. It's multi-dimensionality and multi-directional. And this is, so you're acknowledging, when you recognize the compression, you're acknowledging a desire for fluidity. And this is the beginning of a perspective shift. Oh God, this is hilarious, right? And fluidity allows us to expand into a space that facilitates the receiving of a new perspective. Compression keeps us inside, in inverted commas, the problem. And so when we're inside the problem, we begin to think that we are the problem, right? And then we go, what have I done wrong? How come I can't shift this? You know, back to those beginning phrases, I better work harder. It hasn't worked before. I doubt whether it's going to work now. That you can feel how compressed in those statements life is. But you know, and some of the martial arts principles can begin to apply here. So when they're, you know, doing the chop, they're not focusing on the wood, they're focusing on the space beyond the wood. They're not asking the wood to move, but they're moving through the wood into the space beyond, right? So fluidity is in that, like, you take out of that focus and fight and you're going into your focus becomes past where you're at. And this is where the third part of opening up to living energetics is vital. So, because there's even a change in awareness of energy, right? Energy is a living, conscious aspect of life. So your businesses have a consciousness of their own. Your dog has a consciousness of your own. Your house has a consciousness. Trees have a consciousness. It's all a living field, and it's a continuum of energy states that don't compress, that are in fluidity. They're in change. So when compression comes off by shifting your perspective, allowing different possibilities, then change can actually occur quite quickly. The morphic shifts can come alive because we're no longer holding the compression states in place, which is believing the lie. And we can become much more attuned to the self-organizing aspects. So life is always organizing itself around your perspectives or your belief systems or your compression patterns, as it is also self-organizing around your fluidity. So it's showing you, life is always showing you when you're in a compression pattern and when you're in a fluidity, you know, using some of the increasingly expanding aware of physics. I'm not a physician, but I love hearing that take on the way energies are moving. But, you know, if you look at the plasma screens, right, they're clearer. The picture is better, right? And so we're actually moving from this mechanical compression to recognizing that each one of us is a living consciousness, therefore infinitely malleable and not locked in to actually anything. And where you sense that you're locked into something is where you are definitely attuning yourself, aligning yourself to the matrix, to the programming. And that comes back to that energy of, if I work harder, then it'll work. And it's never worked before, so why should it work now? And really, the fluidity is around every moment is a new creation, is a new creation point. Every moment has always been and will always be a new creation point unless we compress ourselves down into, if it hasn't worked before, it's not going to work now. I'll work harder, but I bet you the bugger won't work anyway. I see that a lot in marketing principles and have been there a lot myself in marketing principles until it becomes a living energetic and allow yourself to be fluid within that and some other steps, which we'll cover in another episode. But when you allow yourself to actually know to be experience fluidity in the perspective that energy precedes effort. It's the energy before you effort. And effort is different from efforting. And I'm not talking about, I don't like efforting. And hard, I see it, and I've done it myself, hard work for the sake of working hard, because we're in a compression pattern that hard work is the way to receive recognition, to achieve anything. But really, this hard work for the sake of working hard, that's the burnout principle. And again, you know that you're in programming and you're in compression. You are not in fluidity, and you are not in the living energetics. So overflow, when we're coming from overflow, we're able to create more in less time. When we're creating from lack and compression and difficulty and hard work, we've got a secondary investment in it being hard in order to prove who we are and that we've done it the right way, that people will recognize. Very, very small way of living. So this leads me into the shifting of the perception and the focus. So if you're focusing on what's wrong and your intention is to fix it, very, very slow. Or you could shift your perspective into being curious, receptive, and in allowance of, I'm going to call it infinite intelligence in this particular episode. Because life is always showing you where you're at. Life is showing you where your compressions are, and it's showing you where your fluidity is. And so if you're trying to wrong it into change to get it right, you're working with about this much of what's on the infinite menu of life. If that's enough for you, great. You'll probably be very bored by the next part of this podcast, right? Because as you shift perception, the focus and the intention shift automatically, because you are perceiving things differently. And if you perceive things differently, you will see different things. Physically, emotionally, mentally, having, become aware that you've always perceived your partner's behavior in a certain way, and when you change your perception, all of a sudden you see it in a completely different way, and then you can have a different conversation around it, right? So the perception is like a pivotal point in shifting your paradigm. And so whether you're living in a paradigm of hard work and looping and trying, or whether you'd like to live in a paradigm of actual conscious, interactive fluidity and ultimate creation of amazing things, what perception are you in? And if you're adopting a hard work, you are not in attunement with I was going to say mechanics, but of course the universe is not a mechanical thing, but you're not in communion with the freedom energetics that actually give you what it is you're seeking, right? So you're hitting it with the wrong hammer, if that makes sense. I also want to make it clear that perception shifting isn't polarity shifting. Because if you're going from one, the world is benevolent, the world is not benevolent, then you're just in a pendulum swing, and you're okay when you're in one perspective and you're not okay when you're in the other perspective. And this is not about shifting your polarity. It's a perceptual evolution, what I call being able to be the space of dynamic neutrality, which is a core of the freedom energetics, because it truly puts you in the driver's seat of being able to choose according to your consciousness and your desires, outside of giving things right or wrong, good or bad definitions, which are all limitations and compressions. So, excuse me, this leads me into the expansion of that, of your perceptual bandwidth. Your bandwidth expands, and therefore when you're running a different bandwidth, just like when you're tuning in a radio, all the radio stations are all streaming at the same time. They're all streaming. Which one are you tuning into? Which one are you choosing? Oh, I like this sort of music or that sort of music. And it's all according to you, which is life, right? So we're all sitting in this rich field all the time of multidimensionality. You're never separated from it. We are programmed to only attune to certain things, but that's what a paradigm shift is about, right? And that's what a possibility is about. It's going, oh my God, I am possible of anything. Let me tune myself into another reality. And so when you are in this expansion, when you're in that expansion of that or bandwidth, the much bigger bandwidth, right? You begin then living as source, living from the heart, living from the infinite possibilities, as opposed to living from the intellect. And intellect is only one aspect of intelligence. The heart currently is still a very active portal to living as source. And I just want to make it very clear that when I speak of the heart and the heart intelligence, I'm not talking about love as an emotion. There is a life force, an inherent life force of intention of the heart that only the heart can message to you. And again, the heart is sending more messages to the brain every day than the other way around. And when you tune yourself into that, whole new paradigms become available to you. And that's when then you become this embodied continuum of your own conscious choosing, not your unconscious programming. So focus, intention, perception are living instruments of experiencing what actually is already there. It's just, are you tuning into it, or are you deciding that you need to compress yourself and work harder and then try at things, even though when really you think, oh, this is not going to work, it didn't work last time? Can you feel and sense the difference in the dynamic of which I'm referring, right? So I hope that supports you to shift some paradigms. And I have actually, there's a gift that's always available after each of the podcasts, and I'm adding in with this particular episode a really fun tool to play with that my clients love playing with, and it's a possibility calendar. So it's got, I don't know, I can't remember now, it's got 30 or 31 days on it, and each day has a possibility for you to play with. And because the more that we play, the more then that we are in this living intelligence, this active continuum of possibility. And that's when your exterior world changes. And so simply by subscribing here, you will receive that. Yes, as a subscriber, that's what you receive. So look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember, you actually are the possibility. Bye for now. The free workbook, Finding Your Missing Piece guide, has helped hundreds of people unlock their potential and create positive change in their lives. It's a free gift and available at the link on my website that's listed below. Find Your Missing Piece, practical tools and exercises that bring the missing awareness around how you view yourself, your possibilities, your obstacles, and activating your receiving capacities.